The fluorescent lights in courtroom 4B flickered like a dying conscience. Cameras clicked in the back rows. Muffled whispers rippled across the spectators' seats, and a single teenage girl sat in the defendant's chair with her wrists trembling against the cold steel of the handcuffs. Her name was Emily Carter, 16 years old, high school junior, and now, according to the state of Illinois, a murderer. She hadn't spoken in days, not since the night her brother was found dead in their suburban home. But when the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, her lips parted and she whispered, "I didn't mean to." The courtroom fell silent. Her mother sobbed quietly into a tissue. Her father, a stoic ex-cop, stared blankly at the floor, his badge long since retired but still gleaming faintly on his belt. The prosecutor had painted Emily as a cold, manipulative liar. The defense, underpaid and overworked, had struggled to convince the jury that what happened was a mistake, an accident of unbearable pressure and fear. But none of that mattered now. The gavel struck. Life without parole. Emily didn't cry, not when the cuffs tightened, not when she was led through the heavy door into the gray corridor. But something behind her eyes cracked, a subtle fracture, like ice breaking beneath a hidden current. In the county transport van, she stared out the barred window as rain traced streaks down the glass. Reporters shouted her name. Some called her the teenage killer. Others whispered the monster next door. Her own reflection looked alien, swollen eyes, lips pale, hair matted from 2 sleepless nights. She wasn't sure when she stopped being Emily, the girl who played piano at the church on Sundays, and became the name people spat on morning talk shows. But the truth, the real truth, was still buried. 2 months earlier, life had been normal. The Carter household was the kind of suburban family everyone envied. 2 kids, 2 cars, and a freshly mowed lawn. Emily's older brother, Ryan, was 17, athletic, charming, captain of the basketball team, and her mother's golden child. Emily adored him, though lately, he had become distant, moody, withdrawn, and unpredictable. Their father, Mark Carter, had been suspended from the police department over an internal investigation that no one in the family dared talk about. Their mother, Lydia, worked double shifts at the hospital, trying to keep the family together while their finances quietly crumbled. Then came the night everything changed. It was supposed to be ordinary, homework, leftovers, television hum. But by midnight, police sirens painted the walls blue and red, and Emily was sitting on the front steps, shaking, her hands soaked in blood. Ryan lay inside, lifeless, a single gunshot wound to the chest. The family's registered firearm, her father's service pistol, was found beside her. She told the officers she didn't remember firing it, that she only wanted him to stop. But stop what? No one ever asked clearly enough. At first, the neighbors offered condolences. But within days, the narrative shifted. A leaked police report hinted at premeditation. The local media feasted on it. Teen girl kills brother after fight. The trial became a spectacle. Teenagers gossiping online, adults calling for justice, strangers writing hate letters to a minor they had never met. Her court-appointed attorney, Martin Hale, tried to argue diminished capacity, emotional trauma, stress, youth. But every time Emily took the stand, her words faltered. Not because she was guilty, but because she was terrified of what telling the full truth might cost her. You see, Ryan wasn't who everyone thought he was. Behind the clean varsity smile, behind the trophies and praise, there was something darker, something Emily had carried alone for years. He had a temper. When their father started drinking after his suspension, Ryan became the enforcer. Discipline, their father called it. But it wasn't discipline when Ryan cornered her in her room, when he grabbed her phone and screamed that she was ruining the family, when he slammed her against the wall because she talked back. Their mother ignored it. He's just stressed, Em. He's a good boy underneath. Emily learned silence early. That night, when Ryan came home drunk, angry, shouting that she had told their father's secrets to someone at school, she locked herself in her room. He broke down the door. The pistol, her father's old Glock, was in the dresser. She never meant to pull the trigger. She only meant to scare him. But 1 second changed everything. The prosecution never let that version breathe. They called it a fabricated tale. They said she had planned it, that she stole the gun earlier that week, that she was jealous of Ryan's success. They had text messages, partial and misinterpreted, twisted to fit a story that fed the public's hunger for outrage. Martin, Her lawyer tried to challenge it, but his objections barely slowed the tide. By the time the verdict came, Emily's fate was sealed long before the gavel fell. Yet somewhere outside that courtroom, someone still believed her. The first night in juvenile detention felt endless. The cell smelled of bleach and damp concrete. The air was cold, not from temperature, but from the way people looked at her, like she didn't belong anywhere. The guards called her the girl who shot her brother. The other inmates, mostly girls older and rougher than her, watched silently as she was let in. No one said a word, but Emily could feel judgment weighing heavier than the handcuffs. When the door clanged shut, she sat on the narrow cot, her mind replaying that single second, the deafening crack of the gunshot, Ryan's body falling, the smell of smoke and fear. She pressed her palms to her ears as if she could force the sound away. It didn't work. It never would. 2 days later, a man appeared outside her cell during lunch. A reporter, mid-30s, clean but tired eyes. His press badge read Daniel Reeves, Chicago Tribune. He didn't say much at first. He just looked at her, really looked, not the way the cameras had, not as a headline, but as if he was trying to understand. "I'm not here to judge you," he said softly. "I just want the truth." Emily stared back. She didn't believe him. Reporters wanted blood, not truth. But Daniel was different, patient, quiet, methodical. He had covered crime stories for years, and something about this case didn't sit right with him. He'd read the transcripts, the evidence logs, the police interviews. Too many inconsistencies. Witness statements that didn't line up. A missing timestamp on a crucial security camera. Over the weeks that followed, Daniel began visiting regularly. He'd sit across the glass, tape recorder between them, and ask careful questions. "Why didn't you testify fully? What did Ryan say to you that night? Who else was home?" She answered little at first, scared that the truth would destroy what little remained of her family's name. But slowly, the words came. Broken pieces, fragile, but real. One afternoon, she whispered, "He wasn't supposed to die. He was just supposed to stop hurting me." Daniel didn't flinch. He simply nodded, eyes steady. "Then we'll prove that," he said. What neither of them knew was that someone else had been watching, someone with a vested interest in keeping the truth buried. Back at the Carter home, her father, Mark, had turned the living room into a shrine of guilt. The gun was gone, the walls bare, but his rage remained. The media hounded him, former officers' daughters sentenced for murder, and his former colleagues avoided his calls. He blamed Emily, of course. She ruined this family, he'd growl after too many drinks. But inside, part of him knew he had built the kind of home where a daughter's fear had nowhere to escape. Lydia, Emily's mother, had retreated into silence. She returned to work, mechanical, vacant. Some nights, she drove past the juvenile center, parked outside the fence, and just stared at the lights through her windshield. But she never went in. Guilt was her prison, and she couldn't bear to face what she'd ignored for years. Then one evening, as she was sorting through old mail, she found something strange. A small padded envelope postmarked 3 days before the shooting. Inside was a USB drive. No name, no return address. She almost threw it away, but curiosity won. She plugged it into her laptop, and what appeared on the screen made her blood freeze. It was footage, home security footage, time-stamped the night before Ryan's death. The camera faced the hallway near Emily's room. The video showed Ryan banging on her door, shouting words the microphone barely caught. Threats, slurs, violent anger. He kicked the door so hard the frame splintered. A minute later, he stormed away, muttering, "If she opens her mouth, I'll end her." Lydia's hand shook as she watched. She hadn't seen any of this in the trial evidence. The prosecution had claimed no usable footage existed. System failure, they'd said. Someone had deleted it before police seized the house. Someone with access. She realized what that meant. Mark, her husband, had still had the login credentials. Meanwhile, Daniel Reeves was uncovering his own trail of rot. Through an anonymous tip, he obtained police body cam footage from the night of the arrest, footage never shown to the jury. On it, an officer off-camera said quietly, "Chief said to wrap this up clean. No more headlines. Make it look cut and dry." Reeves froze. "Chief." That was Mark Carter's former boss, Captain Ronald Baines, the same man who'd suspended Mark months earlier over a corruption probe involving missing evidence. Suddenly, the pieces began aligning. Emily's arrest wasn't just tragedy. It was cleanup. If the public found out that a cop's son had been abusive, violent, and that internal affairs had ignored it, it would have detonated what little reputation the department had left. Someone had decided that silence was worth more than truth. Daniel arranged a secret meeting with Lydia. They met in her car behind a half-closed gas station late at night. He showed her what he had found. She, trembling, handed him the USB drive. "I think my husband deleted the originals," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But someone, maybe from the department, mailed me this copy." Daniel leaned back, exhaling. "If this is real, this changes everything." "It's real," she said, "and I think I know why Emily wouldn't speak." Her eyes glistened. She was protecting us. Even after everything, she was protecting this family. The next week, Daniel submitted the footage and his notes to the state appellate court, along with a request for case review under wrongful conviction procedures. But before the court could respond, something happened. Mark Carter was found dead in his garage, gunshot wound, self-inflicted, note unreadable through bloodstains. In his pocket, a flash drive identical to Lydia's. Inside, a single file labeled "Sorry." It was an email draft, addressed to no one, confessing that he'd ordered the footage deleted to protect the department and preserve the family name. He wrote that he couldn't live with what he'd done. When Daniel read it, he felt both vindicated and sick. The man had destroyed his daughter's life to save a reputation that didn't matter anymore. Emily didn't hear about her father's death until 2 days later. The warden told her gently, sliding the folded newspaper across the table. She stared at the headline, "Former officer found dead amid daughter's case controversy," and for the first time in months, tears fell. But they weren't for him. They were for everything that could never be undone. She whispered, "Maybe now, the truth can breathe." The night after her father's death, the detention center felt quieter than usual, almost reverent. Emily sat by the barred window of her cell, watching the orange glow of the city fade into the horizon. The world outside was moving on, news anchors discussing the scandal, police spokesmen issuing sterile statements. But inside, time stayed still. Grief didn't hit her all at once. It crept in like a fog, thick and cold, touching everything she thought she had made peace with. She remembered his hands, once steady when teaching her to ride a bike, later trembling when gripping a bottle. His voice, first proud, then disappointed, then cruel. Now silence. The finality of it scared her. You grow up believing your parents are the architects of your safety. It takes a lifetime to realize they can also be the builders of your pain. Daniel Reeves arrived the next morning, escorted by a guard. He looked more worn than before, sleepless eyes, a bruise-colored shadow of exhaustion. "Emily," he said softly, taking a seat across the thick glass. "The court's agreed to review your case." She blinked. "Because of the footage?" He nodded. "The footage and your father's note. The Department of Justice just launched a formal investigation into your conviction." For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The possibility of hope felt foreign, almost dangerous. "Does that mean I might get out?" Daniel didn't answer right away. "It means people are finally willing to listen. That's a start." In Chicago, the story exploded. Headlines shifted overnight. Police cover-up alleged in teen's life sentence. Talk shows dissected it. Influencers debated it. Strangers argued online whether Emily was a victim or a manipulator. But for the first time, the conversation wasn't just about guilt. It was about truth. Lydia, meanwhile, found herself facing a reality she couldn't escape. She had defended her husband for years, silenced her daughter's cries, and allowed a system to chew her child alive. Now she was the only one left standing, the last witness of her own cowardice. The prosecutors tried to hold their ground, insisting that the evidence was inconclusive and that new information doesn't exonerate intent. But behind closed doors, even they could feel the case slipping. A quiet panic settled in the courthouse corridors. If it turned out they'd convicted a child on tampered evidence, careers would collapse. Daniel didn't stop digging. He found that the digital forensics report from the original trial had been signed off by a technician who no longer worked for the department, a man named Eli Vasquez. When Reeves tracked him down in a small town near Rockford, Eli looked like someone who'd been hiding from ghosts. "I didn't delete the footage," he said, trembling as he spoke. "They told me to mark the files as corrupt. Bain said it was a direct order. I didn't know it was evidence in a homicide. I swear." Daniel recorded the interview. This was the final nail in the coffin. The retrial was set for March. On the morning of the hearing, the courthouse was packed. Reporters, activists, even a few of Emily's old classmates who had once mocked her online. She was brought in wearing a plain blue dress instead of the orange jumpsuit. Her wrists were free this time. When the bailiff announced her name, she stood tall, older now, thinner, eyes clearer than before. Lydia sat in the second row, clutching a photo of her children taken years ago at the lake. Her hands shook the entire time. The judge, a different one this time, called the courtroom to order. We are here to determine whether the conviction of Emily Carter is to be vacated in light of new evidence and prosecutorial misconduct. Daniel stepped forward, calm but deliberate. He played the recovered footage. The courtroom watched as Ryan's rage filled the screen, the pounding, the threats, the fear. Gasps rippled through the room. Some people looked away. Others cried. Then he played Mark Carter's final recording, his apology. The words were faint but undeniable. I destroyed the evidence. I thought I was protecting the family, but I only buried the truth. The prosecutor's table fell silent. When Emily was invited to speak, she hesitated. For the first time, she looked at the judge, not as a figure of power, but as a person. I didn't mean to kill my brother, she said quietly. I just wanted him to stop. But I kept quiet because I didn't want to destroy my family. I thought if I said everything, my dad would lose his job, my mom would fall apart. I thought silence was strength. But it wasn't. It was poison. Her voice broke, but she didn't stop. If you let me walk out of here, I can't promise I'll ever be the same. But I can promise I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be better than the silence that ruined us. The judge watched her for a long moment. The only sound in the room was Lydia's quiet sobbing. Then, in a steady voice, he said, "The conviction of Emily Carter is hereby vacated. You are free to go." The words hit like sunlight breaking through a decade of cloud. Emily didn't cry, not immediately. She just stood there, stunned, until Lydia ran forward, breaking through the barrier and clutching her daughter in her arms. For the first time in years, Emily let herself be held. Neither spoke. There were no apologies that could fix what had been broken, but for that one moment, forgiveness was real, imperfect, raw, human. Outside, reporters swarmed. Microphones, cameras, flashing lights. But Daniel shielded her, guiding her through the chaos. She looked up at him once and whispered, "You believed me when no one else did." He smiled faintly. The truth just needed a voice. You gave it one. Months later, Emily stood at the edge of Lake Michigan, wind tangling her hair, the city skyline reflected in the water. She had started speaking at schools, telling her story not as a victim, but as a survivor of silence. Her words carried the weight of scars and second chances. Sometimes, she told one audience, redemption doesn't mean undoing the past. It means refusing to let it define you. She still dreamed of Ryan sometimes, not the violent version, but the brother who taught her to swim, who teased her about her piano lessons. In those dreams, he never spoke. He just looked at her, calm, as if finally at peace. Daniel published the story 6 months later. It won awards, but more importantly, it changed policy. The state passed a bill requiring all juvenile interrogations to be recorded, all home footage to be independently archived in criminal cases. Emily's name became a symbol, not of tragedy, but of truth surviving corruption. The last scene of her life as the world knew it wasn't in a courtroom or on a headline. It was a quiet morning at the lake, sunlight breaking through thin clouds, her mother sitting beside her. Lydia reached out, touched her daughter's hand, and whispered, "You can breathe now." Emily smiled faintly, eyes on the water. "I know." And for the first time in years, she did.